Hey, what's going on, everyone? My name is Donovan, and today we're going to take a look at two watches that on the surface look pretty similar. However, they are very, very different. I was able to pick up an Apple Watch Series 3 about 2 weeks ago, and I've had this Amazfit Bip for quite a long time now. This is actually the second Apple Watch Series 3 that I've had, but actually the first one that I got that has cellular built into it. So with that being said, let's go ahead and jump right into 5 ways that the Amazfit Bip beats the Apple Watch Series 3, and a couple of them are going to seem very, very obvious, and then a couple of them maybe not quite as obvious. So the first one is going to be the price point. So the Amazfit Bip is available for around $100. That's the MSRP. However, I'll put a link down in the description, but you can pick this one up for about $60. That's at gearbest.com right now. It's also available directly from Amazfit for $85. I believe on Amazon it's around $100 as well. But I'll leave links down in the description if you're interested in checking it out. But this watch is definitely a very budget-friendly watch. But it does a lot, packs a lot into that $100, and I think it's honestly, for me, one of the best values you can get in a smartwatch. Now, the Apple Watch Series 3 is obviously much more expensive. I picked mine up for $329 when it was on sale through Best Buy. But the regular price of this watch here, this is the 42 millimeter, is $429. But in general, you're looking at about $300 on the low end to up to about $500 for the Apple Watch Series 3, which is very, very expensive, and it packs a ton of technology. It does a whole lot more than the Amazfit Bip, but it is definitely going to carry a hefty price tag with it. So for me, the price of the Amazfit Bip is just absolutely fantastic, whereas the Apple Watch Series 3, of course, is kind of pricey. Now, the second area is going to be a pretty drastic difference, and that is the battery life. So the Amazfit Bip gets up to 30 days of battery life, and that's because of the transreflective display, and we'll talk more about that display in a little bit, but it gets up to 30 days. With the way I use the watch, generally I'm getting about 10 days of usage, and the reason for that is because I'm constantly using the GPS, and then also notice that the heart rate monitor is always on. So I'm using the GPS daily to track my runs, and so as a result, that's going to limit your battery life. But in general, this watch will get you at least 10 days under very heavy use, and up to 30 days if you're not using the GPS nearly as often. Now with the Apple Watch, you're looking, because I have the cellular version, and I do actually keep the cellular on, as you can see here, I'm generally getting about maybe 2 days on a good battery life or good battery cycle, about 2 days, and that's using it pretty heavy. Again, I'm using GPS, I'm using music while I'm running, so I've actually been wearing both of these watches while I run, which is kind of weird, but generally about a day to 2 days of battery life. Now, if you get the non-cellular version and you're not using it as heavily, you might be able to get about 3 days, but in general, I would say a day or 2 days of battery life is pretty standard for the Apple Watch Series 3. Now, the third reason I kind of already mentioned here is the display. And notice that with the Amazfit Bip, regardless of whether it's on or off, it's just basically always on. Now, there is a backlight, so if you want to see it at night, you have to use the backlight, but otherwise, if you're in the daylight, you don't even have to turn the screen on. Basically, it's just always on, and the brighter the light you can see, the easier it is to see. This is technically off right now, but you can still see the screen, whereas of course with the Apple Watch, if you want to see it, you have to flip your wrist up, you have to turn it on, you have to touch the screen, whatever, you have to be able to turn the screen on in order to see it. And that's not a big deal, but it is nice to have that always on display, and it's really easy to see both of these in daylight, but of course this one is transreflective, so the brighter the sunlight, the easier it is to actually see. So that's reason number 3. Reason number 4 is another one that's kind of obvious, but the Apple Watch Series 3, of course, only works with iOS. So, of course, if you're an Android user, you're not really going to be able to use this watch, whereas the Amazfit Bip works with both Android and iOS, so that is fantastic. So if you're an iOS user, you can use it. If you're an Android user, you can use it as well. Alright, so the final reason that the Amazfit Bip beats the Apple Watch Series 3 is the always-on heart rate monitor. So one of the things you'll notice is that right now, even when I'm not wearing the Amazfit Bip, it is technically checking my heart rate. Need to get out of that. And so that's cool. It's always checking your heart rate. So if you're sleeping, it's checking it. It's checking it for sleep tracking purposes, but also during workouts, very accurate, as well as the GPS, also very accurate. And in fact, I'd actually say that the GPS on the Amazfit Bip is slightly better than the Apple Watch Series 3. I've had just a few hiccups with the Series 3. From time to time where it will give just slightly off readings. So for instance, last night this watch said 8.02 miles for exactly an 8-mile run, whereas this one said 8.06. So it's not a huge deal, but the GPS was just a little bit more accurate. Now, heart rate sensing, they both said the exact same for my average heart rate, so that's really not a big deal. But with the Apple Watch Series 3, you don't quite get always on continuous heart rate monitoring. So you can see here, when your heart rate does change, it will kind of track it. So that's, it's just kind of showing it at different times of the day. And obviously it does track it quite often, anywhere from like every 7 minutes. But anytime you're moving, basically it's going to track it. Whereas with the Amazfit Bip, it literally is tracking it all day, never shuts off. It's always tracking your heart rate. So probably slightly more accurate calorie counting. Whereas on the Apple Watch, because it's only tracking it when you're changing your movements, it's not going to be quite as accurate, but still very accurate, and overall a fantastic watch. And again, overall, the Apple Watch Series 3 is definitely the superior device. In fact, I went for a run last night, and my wife actually was able to call me with just the watch, which is really fantastic. Obviously, you're not going to get anything like that on the Amazfit Bip. And overall, the Apple Watch Series 3 is definitely the better of the two devices. But I wanted to point out that there are definitely some things worth checking out with the Amazfit Bip, especially at that $60 price point. I would still argue that it's probably, if you're looking for best value for your money, the Amazfit Bip is probably one of the best watches you can get out there for smartwatches. So anyways, I hope this video has been helpful for you. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Peace.